Warning: the Hayes Nation may stimulate personal growth and prosperity. Participation is strongly advised.
Well, today on the show, we're asking the question, is get rich quick a real thing? And then later, your surroundings, they will either make you or break you. Not going to want to miss any of this, and it all starts right now. Okay, well, I'm your host, George Hayes, and welcome to the George Hayes Radio Podcast. I hope you're having a blessed day wherever you are. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to spend it with us. We are broadcasting from the great state of Alabama in the Bama One Podcast Studio. If you want to reach out to me, it's georgehayes@usa.com. Email me there, georgehayes@usa.com. I want to hear your story. If you are on the road to faith, freedom, and prosperity, look, I want to hear that story. Tell me what it is that you're doing. And if you're struggling or you don't know where to begin, I want to hear that too. But I do like to see this. If you are struggling, try and throw in some ideas of what you're trying to do to get on the path. And of course, always all questions are welcome. You can leave comments on YouTube at the George Hayes Radio Podcast. We're available on almost every podcast platform. And if we're not, we're trying like heck to get on there. And if you want to follow me on social media, only one place, it's on X at Real George Hayes. And then finally, I have to say this every time. If you really want to boost it to the next level, go to HayesNation.com. That is the home of this show. That is where you are going to find all the episodes, whether it's video or, the podcast. But more importantly, you're going to find a group of individuals like-minded, just like you, who believe in faith, freedom, and prosperity. We're building discussion there, trying to put people together. If you got somebody who's strong in one area and somebody who's strong in another area, maybe we got somebody who's strong in faith and we've got somebody who's strong in finances, and everybody's working together to try to build wealth. It's a great place to go. And I post all kinds of tools and things to support you on that site in your journey to success. Okay, that was a mouthful. And so the clock is running. And just, as a programming note, this is episode 5. And, we're still building base. The first probably 10 to 15 episodes, we're going to be covering topics kind of at a high level. I want to bring these things to your attention. A lot of it just has to do with behavioral traits, what we currently know, try to find out what we don't know. And then as time progresses, we will start getting a little bit more detailed. And I'll also start to bring in real-time information and that type of stuff. So, stay with us. It's going to balloon into something really big, and you're going to want to be part of it. So right now we're going to talk about, is get rich quick a real thing? Okay. And later, like I said, we'll talk about your surroundings will make you or break you. And believe me, you want to stay for the whole episode, okay? But let's dive right into, is get rich quick a real thing? So now, let me ask you this question. have you ever like scrolled through social media? Now, in my day, it was newspaper ads and mailer inserts. I don't know how much attention people pay look at the mail anymore. But right now it seems most prevalent on social media. And have you ever seen those ads promising overnight riches? Follow my program and I'll make you a millionaire. That's what we're diving into today. Okay. And I'm going to give you a little spoiler alert. Usually it's a trap. But, we all take pitfalls to dodge what it really takes to build something solid. And it only comes through hard work, faith, and, obviously your freedom to go out and chase your dreams. But, there's these people prey on the fact that, people seek shortcuts and they make it seem so incredible that you just want to just dole your money out to them, and they're just, without any work, they're going to make you a millionaire. Now, I can tell you right now, I call most of these the green drink or green tea or whatever you want to call it, gurus. They'll tell you, hey, I've made millions and millions of dollars, and now I'm going to share my secrets with you. And and if you drink this drink every morning, and if you meditate a certain way, and you do X, Y, and Z, you're going to have the same success that I have. And I'm going to give you something to work with when you see these things, because if you're tempted by it, ask yourself this question. If a person has unlocked the key to a market that is making them so incredibly wealthy, and let's just say they're making millions of dollars, why would they share that? Wouldn't they want to build that into a billion-dollar enterprise? Are they publicly traded? Can you get any information on their finances? I mean, I just, I ask these questions because throughout my life, I've been tempted by multi-level marketing. And yes, I'm guilty of participating in some pretty stupid stuff. But I learned the hard way. You give out all this money without really asking the hard questions. Like, let me see your balance sheet. Sometimes they'll show you a check, or they'll show you a series of checks. Look, I've received this check for $10,000, and this one for $9,000, and this one for $100,000. But you don't have any way to verify that those checks are real, do you? Do many people even think to ask? I mean, I would want to see, if I was going to get into business with somebody, I would want to see the books on the company. I would want to see it all laid out. Because if I were going to invest into it, I want to know what I'm getting into. I want to know if they're really making a profit. I want to know what their expenses are, what their overhead is. There's all kinds of questions I would want to ask. Now, there are pitfalls to avoid these, get-rich schemes. Okay? Now, in a world pushing instant access, these schemes prey on our desire for quick freedom from the grind. They ignore the hard work, okay, and often lead to a loss. All right? Now, the pitfalls continue, okay? Most of these are high risk and they are scams. And many are just outright fraud, like Ponzi schemes or crypto cons. And people lose billions annually to these people. In America, liberty means opportunity, but it also means being vigilant against deceivers, okay? And there are a lot of deceivers out there. And there's one big deceiver I can think of that controls all of them. True wealth builds slowly, just like stewardship in faith. All of this takes time. And schemes that focus on recruitment or speculation, not building something sustainable, do they contrast with your business experience? Okay? Let me try to rephrase that. These schemes generally focus on recruitment or speculation. Okay? They're not building something. There's nothing behind the curtain. Okay? And I want you to contrast that with your actual business experience. If you worked for somebody, you've owned a company, right? I mean, there's a lot involved to operating a business. And so we have to be careful of the pitfalls. Now, one of the reasons that people jump into these is fear of missing out. And, this drives an impulse inside of us. Okay, especially on social media or, any kind of AI hype, right? I mean, they know that people are struggling and they know how to word it in such a way to turn that impulse on in your brain to push that button and give over the money. So, in my opinion, avoid anything that promises riches without effort, okay? It goes against the spirit of earning through ability. It's just the way I look at it. Now, a 2025 FTC report shows that Americans lost over $10 billion to investment scams last year alone. Most were, quick win promises on apps like Telegram and all kinds of other social media apps. And people click on these and they watch these videos and they get these presentations and they get sucked in. And next thing you know, they got the credit card out and, it's a losing proposition. They never make their money back. So if there really isn't get rich quick? So there might be a person, this is not selling get rich quick, but there are people out there who have great innovative ideas. And their ideas are so awesome that they move very quickly and those people become rich very fast. I don't know if I qualify that into what we're talking about today because, they would get rich fairly quick, but it's not the same thing as being lured into a scheme where someone is asking for your money and promising to deliver, this unimaginable amount of income, and then it never happens. And by the way, and don't quote me on this, you have to look it up for yourselves because I don't have it in my notes here today. But I believe that it is against the law. It's illegal to run a scheme where the recruitment or the entry fee is more than what the actual product or service will make you. In other words, you make more money on recruiting than you do on the actual business itself. So in other words, I've got this great idea and I've got this product and I'm going to charge you hundreds of dollars to sell my product, but I'll pay, I'll give you the ability to charge somebody else hundreds of dollars to sell the same product. No one's selling the product. Everybody's just recruiting and making money off of recruiting. I don't believe that is actually legal. So what does it take to start a real successful business? Okay. Now, let me just say this. Instead of chasing mirages, okay, let's talk about real prosperity, starting a business the right way, like I did with my contracting firm. And, you know, when I was in telecommunications, I worked for a lot of the large corporations out there, and I went off on my own. And I wanted to do, contracting construction for those companies. And I had to take my own real money, my hard-earned savings. At the time, I had, 30 plus years of savings. This was my retirement savings. And I rolled the dice on forming my own company. And we started off small. You buy one truck, you get a contract first, you get your license, you get a contract. You do, and even before all of that starts, you do a business plan. You have to model it out because there needs to be a market for what you're offering. Now, in my case, it was technical services. And there was a market for it. And yes, we did a business plan, but we started off very small. One little vehicle, working out of the house, right? Then it slowly built up. Led to 2 vehicles, 3 vehicles. We finally had to have an office. We had to be able to house the vehicles. We started hiring employees. This is how businesses grow, okay? Now, market research and planning. You need to do that. If you're really going to start a business, you need to validate your idea. 42% of all startups fail because there's no demand. I just mentioned that, right? Like, fortunately for me, I was in an industry where I knew what the demand was. But if you're going to start a business, you have to know if there's demand for what you're going to do. And you start with a simple business plan. Statistics show that planned businesses are 16% more likely to succeed. Now, that number, 16%, sounds low, but surprisingly, the vast majority of startup businesses fail in the first year. Now, what are the startup costs for an actual real business? Well, they can be all over the board, but the average is around $40,000, depending on whether it's, products or services, and it goes up from there. And I can tell you when I started my business, it was way past that number. Now, for a business to be successful, it requires hard work and resilience. 90% of new businesses fail overall, but only the survivors who grind through are the ones that win. And you need to expect at least 1 to 2 years before you get even to profitability. Think about that. It takes a long time. In my own case, I gave myself a very small salary because, and you have to imagine this, I'm literally paying myself because remember, I took my investment money or my retirement money and I invested it into a business, right? So I'm working with my own money. And until we start getting invoices and checks coming in, someone's got to cover everything. So I literally have myself on a salary, paying myself from myself just so I could cover my own expenses. We're not making any money yet. And for us, it did. It took about 1 to 2 years. I think it was about 1.5 years, almost 2 years before we started becoming profitable. And for those of you who are, like, if you just work for somebody, you've been an employee your whole life, and you may not have a full grasp about just how much your employer goes through in order to keep the lights on. It's really, there's really a lot that goes on behind the scenes in being a true business owner, okay? Some of the things that you have to do when you start a business is you need to build value, right? You got to focus on solving problems for your customers. That has to be like your most important thing. You need to network. You need to learn skills and scale smartly. You remember I just said, right? We scaled smartly. I mean, we started very small and worked our way up because if it wasn't going to work, I didn't want to lose any more capital than I had to. And it's not get rich quick. It's not quick at all. But with faith and determination, you can build lasting prosperity. But it doesn't come from a click on a social media website that, promises these great riches. At least I don't believe it does. And if there's somebody out there who's actually been successful, hey, I want to hear the story. But I guarantee there's going to be fewer of you and more of you that it didn't work. Now, I will say this as a caveat. Someone like me, who I've been around the block, and I know how to read financials. Maybe I might be able to pull off something if what they have is real. But I'm also willing to do the deep dive, to ask the hard questions up front because I know what questions to ask, and I'm also willing to do the work. And that's the other thing about, going back to get rich quick schemes, right? Is do you really believe that without asking any questions, without any experience, you're just going to click on a link and it's going to deliver, rain checks down into your checking account? The likelihood is not good. So let me share this with you, okay? This is Proverbs 13:11. Dishonest money dwindles away, but whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow. And what that verse does is it emphasizes that quick or unethical gains often fade, while steady, honest effort leads to lasting growth. Now, get rich quick? I don't think so. I mean, it's mostly a myth that robs you of real growth. Because if you have just a tiny amount of money, let's just say you live paycheck to paycheck and you've at least saved up a couple $1,000s. And you're going to take that couple $1,000s and you're going to roll the dice on the internet with someone you don't know. And I don't care if they even have a phone call with you. Okay, they'll get you on the phone, right? And they'll speak to you and they'll act like you're, your best friends, right? They're trained to do that. You still don't know those people. Stick to hard work, planning, and faith for true freedom and prosperity. That always works. Now, I want to just say this, okay? I really do want to know what you think on this topic. So email me at georgehayes@usday.com. You can hit me up on X at Real George Hayes if you want, or leave notes on YouTube. But I really want to know where you stand on this topic. Have you tried one of these get-rich-quick schemes? Have you tried multiple ones? Have they ever been successful for you? And if you've gotten taken, I know it's embarrassing, but share it with me. I really want to know, what your experience was. Now, when we come back, we're going to talk about your surroundings will make you or break you. And this is a very important topic because if we don't surround ourselves with the right people, it's very hard to be successful. I'm your host, George Hayes. I'll be right back.
You're listening to the George Hayes Radio Podcast.
Hi, I'm George Hayes, and I am so excited you took time out of your busy day to check out this program. We are building a community of like-minded individuals who believe in faith, freedom, and prosperity. Who can't get excited about that? Anyone, including you, can create a life of success. Whether you're a blue-collar worker, maybe you're in college seeking a professional career, or you're creative in the arts. Maybe you're an entrepreneur. The options are limitless. This show is here to help you keep moving forward. We will discuss a wide range of topics that will help you create, develop, and stick to a plan. And look, every now and then, I'm going to give you a swift kick right in the pants to keep you on track. So keep coming back, subscribe to the show, share with your friends, and check out HayesNation.com and engage in the conversation. Together, let's create your roadmap to success and prosperity. And with God's many blessings, I know you can do it. And with that, let's get back to the show.
Hayes. The George Hayes Radio Podcast wants to hear from you. Tell us what motivates you or describe that obstacle standing in your way. You could be featured on an upcoming episode. Send your story via email to georgehayes@usa.com. That's georgehayes@usa.com.
Okay, well, welcome back to the George Hayes Radio Podcast. I'm your host. This is segment 2. Thanks for sticking around. You're going to be glad that you did. Okay, so first of all, let's get this out of the way. Contact me at usa.com, georgehayes@usa.com, georgehayes@usa.com. I want to hear your stories. If you want to leave comments, we're on YouTube at the George Hayes Radio Podcast. Social media, only one place. That's X. You can find me at Real George Hayes. And go to HayesNation.com. Become part of the Hayes Nation. Okay, let's just dive right in. Now, look, I got a lot of notes, okay? And to get through this, I'm really going to have to rely on my notes because I could probably just talk you through this and I could kind of weave in and out on this, but I don't believe that it would do justice. So bear with me because the point I'm going to make here in this segment, which is your surroundings will make you or break you, is an extremely important one. And I need for this to come across so that you fully get the picture. Okay? So let's just start off, okay? Let's start off with Proverbs 13:20. Let's go there, okay? Now, Proverbs 13:20 says this: "Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm." Now, this means that the company that you keep has direct impact on your personal growth. It encourages association with wise people to gain wisdom and warning against the harm of foolish companions. Now, I wanted to start there because I'm setting the base there. Just remember, walk with the wise, okay? So let me ask you this question. Let's start here. Have you ever noticed that people around you, and it can be family, friends, it can be at work, they can lift you up or they can just drag you down, okay? This is what we're talking about today. when I talk about your surroundings. Okay. Now, this, like I said, this includes family, friends, coworkers, social media, news that you watch, your routines, your daily routines, and even what you read. Everything you consume has an impact on you, and it can affect you positively or negatively. And all of it shapes your path to wealth and success. So choose wisely, or you may crash hard. And honestly, a lot of people never even get off the launch pad because they're so drowned in all of this negativity. You can't do that. You'll never amount to anything. Oh, that's a stupid idea, right? They never break through. And you have a God-given right to live the life you want to live. But you're going to have to do the work to get there. Now, all of this influence is important. It's important to recognize it. If you can't see the negative influence by the time I'm done with this, I'm not sure. I guess we'll have to do this again, maybe in a different way, but I hopefully I can drive it home in this one segment, okay? Finding the right mentor or mentors and ditching negative influences is vital to getting on the path to building a prosperous life. And we live in a world of distractions. Your environment is key to faith-guided prosperity and the freedom to build a life on your terms. I'm going to repeat that. Your environment is key to faith-guided prosperity and the freedom to build a life on your terms. Whatever that life is you want it to be. Now, I'm just going to mention this, okay? I got to walk away at age 58 because I surrounded myself with positive influences. And that fueled my determination. I no longer trade my time and my labor for a paycheck. Now, look, it's not, I'll say this again and again and again, okay? We're not talking millions and millions and millions of dollars here. There's nothing like that. I've just created a system of investments that allows me to live comfortably, to be able to do the things that I want to do. When I wake up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, decide what I want to do, right? That's the life I wanted to live. Okay? So I set myself up for that. And it had to do with my surroundings. Now, your surroundings aren't just background noise, okay? They mold your mindset, your habits, and it affects your opportunities. All the negativity, that leads to stagnation. And the positive ones, okay, the positive forces in your life, those are the ones that propel you to prosperity through hard work and faith. Now, and when doing research for this, I had never heard this term before, but another author actually wrote this, and I thought it was great. Watch out for energy vampires. It sounds crazy. Energy vampires. And who are these energy vampires? Those are family or friends who complain about work. They discourage your dreams, or they push the get-rich-quick nonsense. Remember, in the first segment, I talked about, the get-rich-quick, right? And these are the people that are, oh, I found it. This is the one. I finally figured it out, man. I'm going to be a millionaire. You watch. I'm doing this new thing, right? And of course they do that over and over and over. And every couple of months it's something new and it never materializes. You want to stay away from that. Okay. Now in America, freedom means choosing who influences you. And bad company corrupts good habits. You're free to choose whoever you hang out with. You're free to take advice from whoever you want to. And you're free to cut out the noise. You can just tune it out. But that's entirely up to you. Now, 1 Corinthians 15:33, chapter 15, verse 33. Do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. I think that says it all right there. Now, toxic workplaces and lazy routines, endless scrolling at work, right? Right? Instead of reading, you just, doing this, zip, 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 right? Or, a bunch of negativity coming in the workplace, this toxic environment that's just not healthy, okay? That sabotages your success. And you need to break free by setting boundaries or change jobs if you have to. Do not stay in a toxic environment. You need to remove yourself from it. Now, let me ask you this. What do you consume? And I'm talking about reading, media. What are you consuming? And have you ever heard the term garbage in, garbage out? Because this is important, okay? You want to feed your mind with uplifting books. Books on faith, including the Bible, business, American history. Anything that will help build resilience and ideas for prosperity. But again, if you're just, scrolling, right? Garbage in, garbage out. You're not getting anything from the scrolling. You have to change your routines and start taking in good information, good data, okay? So, hopefully you're getting the point. And let me just add something here, okay, to this. And I'll give you an example. Let's say your immediate social group is a bunch of friends. You're all about the same age. You went to high school together, right? And you're all kind of on par. You're all on the same level. You're all, going into the work, into the workspace and, right? These are probably not the people that you want to take financial advice from when it comes to building a life of wealth. Why? Because they haven't been there. They don't have the experience. Now, there might be one outlier out there, okay? One or two. And I'm sure somebody's going to tell me that, right? But I'm just telling you, in general, this is not the group that you want to get the advice that it takes to build long-term wealth. Because long-term wealth, learning long-term wealth, you're going to learn that from people who have experienced it, who have actually done the thing. Building long-term wealth is boring. It takes a long time and a lot of discipline of holding back and delaying gratification so that you can have something in your future. Okay, so now let's flip the script. Okay, let's flip it around and talk about surrounding yourself with winners and start finding the right mentors. Okay? Now, avoiding the bad is step one. But to really thrive, seek out mentors who embody faith, freedom, and prosperity. Okay? In other words, seek out mentors that have your worldview. It's extremely important that you focus on people who have your worldview. Now, what makes a good mentor? Okay. Well, we want to look for folks who have walked the path. Remember, I just said that, right? I mean, you got to find mentors who have walked this path. Okay. And maybe they're successful in the trades, in business, or in the faith community, and that they value hard work and determination. That's an important part of it. They should align with your values, like I said, okay? And they should be the type of people that give the glory to God, whether they win or they lose. Praise the Lord. Now, how do you find these people? Well, first of all, you can network at church, okay? And at church, every walk of life is in church. You are going to find people who are in every business and every trade. You're going to find executives. You're going to find plumbers. You're going to find, accountants. You're going to find all kinds of people at church. Other places, industry events. You can go online, but here's the thing with online. You got to be really careful. You have to find groups that are focused on entrepreneurship or building wealth or focused on prosperity. Those are the types of, if you're going to look online, that's what you need to look for. This show would be a good example of something you would want to look for. Start small, okay? Let's just say you find somebody interesting and you see that, they're doing really, really well. See if you can buy them a cup of coffee. And this is really amazing. Successful people love to share. And if you walk up to someone who's successful and you say, hey, look, I'm really trying to focus on building wealth and I'm struggling. Could I pick your brain for a couple of minutes? 9 times out of 10, those people will be flattered and honored to sit down with you and give you advice. And that 1 out of 10, if they say no, well, that's a blessing because you don't want to deal with that person to begin with. They probably don't align with your worldview. Now, you also need to start building positive routines, okay? And that means surrounding yourself with uplifting habits. Okay? Examples. Read your Bible daily. Okay? You don't have to spend hours. Read a couple of chapters every day. Podcasts on success. Again, like I mentioned, this is a great example of a podcast that focuses on building a life of prosperity. And there are other shows out there, and I encourage you to seek them out. You want to find like-minded support. Now, in this country, liberty lets you choose your circle for self-reliance. You understand that? No one's telling you you have to, or I should say, no one's forcing you to stay in the circle that you're in. You do not have to stay in that circle. You can break free of it. If you truly want more for your life, if you truly want to have a prosperous life, whatever that means to you, you have the ability to break free. In America, no one is stopping you. And I'm going to say this again, avoid the family friend pitfalls. We love them. We all love our family, but limit the influence, especially if they're negative. Set boundaries. Do it with grace. Be nice, okay? You don't have to be mean. And focus on your path to prosperity. Don't let those negative forces influence you. Now, I want to share a couple of things with you here real quick, all right? And I've got to read this to you. A 2025 Harvard Business Review study found that people with strong mentors earn 20% more over their careers. 20% more. If you're working with someone who's helping you and guiding you, it's only going to benefit. It's going to be a net benefit. Now, surrounding yourself with optimistic people, that boosts your own success odds by 15%. And that was done through a survey through the University of Notre Dame. Your surroundings, they can make you or break you. You need to ditch the negative. Seek mentors and build habits that honor faith, freedom, and prosperity through, you ready for this? Determination and planning. Yes, that's right. We still have to work hard at it. And it's a slow, grinding pace. But it's a wonderful feeling when you get on the other side. And the younger you are, the earlier you start, the better off you're going to be. Nobody wants to be 65, dead broke, and faced with the fact that they have to keep working for the rest of their life. So take stock. Who's in your circle? And remember, God gave you free will, so you get to choose, okay? Now, if you have a mentor, I'd love to hear your story. If you're working with somebody and it's actually working out really good, send that story to me at georgehayes@usa.com. I want to hear that story, and I might even ask you to come on. I want to leave you with this Proverbs verse here. It's 11:14. Okay. For lack of guidance, a nation falls, but victory is won through many advisors. Now, what does this mean? It stresses the value of seeking counsel from multiple wise sources to achieve success and avoid failure. Just remember, what's surrounding you is impacting your future. Take stock in it. Take inventory today. Okay? Remember, God loves you. He wants you to be prosperous. Keep that train rolling down the tracks. And remember that the light at the end of the tunnel just might be you. I'll see you next time.
It's time to smash that like button and subscribe. To share or leave comments, log on to YouTube at the George Hayes Radio Podcast or visit us online at HayesNation.com.